Hello, I'm here tonight with Jason Lewis, State Senator for the 5th Middlesex District. I'd like to introduce my two new friends who will be helping with the show from now on, Connor McWan and Aaron Shue. It's an honor to have you here, Mr. Lewis.
It's great to be with you, Aiden, Aaron, and Connor.
All right, so to start off, just tell us a bit about yourself personally.
Well, I have the privilege of serving as the state senator for parts of Winchester, as well as Stoneham, Malden, Melrose, Reading, and Wakefield.
Right.
I previously was the state representative for Stoneham and Winchester. And way before that, I actually grew up pretty far away from here in South Africa, which is where I was born. And my family emigrated to the United States when I was 12 years old, which is, I imagine, pretty close to your ages, right? You're all in 6th grade. And so that was a big experience for me when I was a child. I never really ever thought I would be interested in politics or running for office. I had a business career before I ran for the legislature, but I've always been interested in civil rights issues and social justice, going back to my childhood in apartheid era South Africa. And I got very involved with the Winchester Public Schools when my daughter was in kindergarten, and we had some budget cuts, and my wife and I got involved in volunteering in the school library, and that got me more interested in serving in government. So that's how I got to where I am today.
All right, great. Next we'll have a question from Connor.
We understand you're currently running for re-election. How would you say your campaign is going so far?
Yes, I'm finishing up really my first full term in the Massachusetts Senate. Each term is 2 years. And so now I am running for re-election. I would very much like to have the opportunity to continue to serve the people of this district, and working hard to make sure that the residents of the district know what I've been up to, and what I would like to continue to do if I'm re-elected, and particularly on issues related to education and funding for our schools, as well as improving health care and bringing down the cost of health care, and also just some of the projects that we're working on right here locally, like the new Winchester Center commuter rail station.
All right, great. Here's a question from Aaron.
Tell us a bit about your beliefs on taxes.
Yep, that's a very, very important issue. Taxes are what allows us to fund all of the essential services that our government provides, whether that's local services right here in the town or the state government.
Yes.
And so, for example, that's how we pay for public education, that's how we pay for transportation, like our roads and our bridges, and that's how we pay for a lot of our health care as well for individuals who either are too poor or are disabled and not able to purchase their own health insurance. Parks and recreation, environmental protection, substance abuse treatment, many different things. So, my view is that it's important to spend taxpayer money very as efficiently as possible, and make sure that it's not wasted, and to try to make sure we have enough revenue to cover all the services that the citizens expect us to provide.
Yes. Do you think that we should lower our taxes or make them higher?
Well, there is a proposal that I'm supportive of, that we're working on right now, which is known as the Fair Share Amendment, or it's also known as the Millionaire's Tax, and it's a proposal which may appear on the ballot in 2 years from now, 2018, which means all the voters would get to vote on it, and that would it would be a slight surtax on income over $1 million. So any family that earns more than $1 million a year, which is a lot of money,
Yes.
would pay, rather than paying the 5% income tax, which is the the state's income tax rate, they would pay 9%, but only on the income that they earn above $1 million. And we estimate that that would generate about $2 billion more, and that would have to all go towards our schools, making college more affordable for students, and for improving our transportation system, including the T. So those are certainly important needs we have. I don't think we want to be raising taxes for working families or middle-income families, because they already have a hard time making ends meet. But very, very wealthy people, I think we can ask them to pay a little bit more, and that would go to the benefit of everybody.
That idea sounds really nice.
Next, a question from Connor.
What are your beliefs on education?
So to me, there's nothing more important than public education. That's what gives every child an opportunity to live up to their fullest potential. Massachusetts is really the home of public education. Back in the 1800s, there was somebody named Horace Mann and other people who strongly believed that every child should be able to get educated, and it shouldn't only be children who come from wealthy families who can afford it. So it's hard to believe today because we take it for granted, but it didn't used to be the case that public education was available. It was only if you were privileged enough to be able to afford it. So we have long supported public education. We, in Massachusetts, we're very proud that we have very strong schools, and we get some of the best results. Our students get some of the best results of anywhere in the world. But that said, we still have to always do better. And we have challenges with our budgets in our schools, and being able to make sure we have enough programs like art and music. And also we do have achievement gaps between some of our students who are very successful and some of our other students who might be struggling. And those could be students that don't speak English as a first language and maybe have special needs. So we've got to do better in helping all students to I think, to be successful.
All right. On the topic of education, question 2 on the ballot this year concerns charter schools. And according to an unofficial ballot, quote, this proposed law would allow the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education to approve up to 12 new charter schools or enrollment expansions in existing charter schools each year, unquote. Mm-hmm. What is your stance on this ballot question?
I will be voting no on question 2. I do think some charter schools, actually many charter schools in Massachusetts, do a very good job educating the students that attend those schools and get very good results. However, this ballot question, I think, is not responsible because it allows a lot more charter schools. 12 more schools a year is actually a very large number. There's only 70 total in Massachusetts. And it doesn't address many concerns that are out there. The foremost among them is how we fund charter schools, because when a student goes to a charter school, the funding leaves the student's district. And the costs don't typically leave, so the school district still has roughly the same costs, but now they have less funding to educate all the other students. So that's a big problem, and this ballot question doesn't really address that issue. And the state Senate actually passed a very comprehensive bill that would have allowed more charter schools over time, but would have addressed the funding issues, would have addressed issues of making sure that all students have access to charter schools, and it's not a more selective process. But unfortunately, that legislation did not get all the way through the legislature, and so now we have this ballot question before us.
Okay, on staying on the topic of ballot questions, question 4 on the ballot is the proposed legalization of marijuana with certain conditions. What is your opinion on this question?
So I'll be voting no, also on question 4. I chair the Public Health Committee for the State Senate, so I do a lot of work on health issues. And I also am the chair of the Special Senate Committee on Marijuana, so I actually have spent a lot of time studying marijuana policy. I actually led a delegation of state senators to Colorado earlier this year, because Colorado is one state that has legalized marijuana, so we wanted to see for ourselves firsthand. And my concern is that this ballot question doesn't adequately protect public health and public safety, and I'm particularly
Right.
concerned about the impact it could have on teenagers, young adults, children, and actually pets as well. This ballot question, allows very high potent marijuana edibles, things like candy bars, cookies, cupcakes, ice cream, all of those would be legal, and they have very strong marijuana in them, and sometimes you can't even tell them apart from regular foods. So I'm very concerned about that, and I'm also concerned about people that might be driving while they're high, and a lot of people don't think that's a problem, but it is a problem, and we don't really have any way to deal with it like we do try to deal with drunk driving, which is of course also an ongoing problem. So for those reasons and others, I think this is something that we should vote no, and we should figure out a better way to legalize marijuana.
Okay. Also about marijuana, how would you deal if that ballot question is not passed? How would you deal with illegal marijuana in Massachusetts?
So I do think that there is an argument for legalization, and a better way to do it would be to make it legal to possess and use it, but not commercialize it. In other words, what I don't want to see is lots of marijuana businesses everywhere, making it very accessible, advertising and promoting marijuana, and having billboards and celebrity endorsements, and the kinds of things that the tobacco industry has done for a long time to try to get more usually teenagers and young adults to become addicted, and I'm worried that we'll see the same pattern in the marijuana industry, trying to get people addicted at a young age, and that's how they make a lot of money. So
how would you restrict ads and things like that?
Well, that's what you would try to do. You'd basically you could try to first of all limit the products. So, for example, not allowing edibles or very high potent products to be on the market. Try to restrict any kind of as much as possible marketing, as much as you can do that. Limit the number of marijuana stores that can open up, so that it's not something like everywhere in every neighborhood and all over the place. Try to make sure that that we do everything to educate teens about not consuming marijuana, to make sure that we do prevention campaigns, public health campaigns, make sure that our police officers are trained and have the resources to detect people who are driving while they're high, so that they can stop people from doing that. So those are all the kinds of things I think we would need to do, but unfortunately this ballot question doesn't really do that.
Okay. Here's a question from Aaron.
What are some other issues important to you?
Well, something else that's important to me is working on health and wellness.
Yes.
So I believe, one of the big challenges that we're facing is that we have very high healthcare costs. And that is a big problem for many families, affording their healthcare insurance. And it's also a big problem for businesses that have to buy health insurance for their employees, and that's also a very big challenge for our government, because that's a lot of our, remember we talked about taxes before? A lot of that money is actually going to help pay for health care. So we really need to get healthcare costs under control, and there's no silver bullet, but one of the ways I think we can is if we can improve health and wellness, if we can focus more on primary care and prevention, and if we can bring down the rates of chronic diseases that are preventable, things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, which has been skyrocketing, in our country, and that's preventable. It would also bring down certain types of cancer that are preventable. So pursuing policies and support for programs that focus on prevention and wellness, I think will help people live better, healthier lives, and also help us control healthcare costs.
You said preventing chronic diseases, so there's like a new thing about DNA changing. Do you have any opinions about that?
I think I think you're referring to new kinds of medicines.
Yes.
Well, I think they hold a lot of promise. If we can make medicines more precisely tailored to a person's particular illness, that we can provide better treatment and also hopefully be more cost effective. So that would be a good thing.
Here's a question from Connor.
What are some of your accomplishments so far?
Well, let's see. There was legislation that we passed a few years ago that created what's called a Prevention and Wellness Trust Fund, which is providing funding for programs in local programs that promote health and wellness. And that was something that, that was legislation I filed. I also I led an effort to update the state's public records law, which has to do with making government information available to regular people and to the media, so that people can know what their government is up to. And I think that's very important, that we be transparent. And that law hadn't been updated since the 1970s, and that was something that I led the effort on, which was successful this session. And I'm proud of also what we've been able to do right in our own communities. So for example, in Winchester, we are going to be rebuilding the train station, the Winchester Center Station, and that required a lot of work with the MBTA, to get their support and funding to build it. It's a very major project. And also to build our new high school in Winchester, which is underway right now, and hope you'll be there, one day. And that's a project which is a partnership between the state and the town to build the new high school. So I'm very pleased that that's going well. We're also have been doing a lot of work to reduce flooding in Winchester. We all remember some of the big storms we've had, flood mitigation projects, and that also has been a partnership between the town and the state. So those kinds of things, are very important projects, I think, that help the town and the residents of Winchester.
All right, great. An issue prominent here in Winchester and also in Stoneham, those are two of the 6 towns you represent, is the Chapter 40B law and the Forest Ridge project. Tell us about your opinion on this major local issue.
So yes, I'm opposed to both the project that the 40B development that's been proposed for Forest Ridge in Winchester, and I've long opposed the project that's proposed for Weiss Farm in Stoneham. And that's because I think that those are cases where developers are taking advantage of the Chapter 40B law, and they're proposing projects that I think are just far too big and don't belong in the locations where they're proposed. So there are other 40B projects that have been built around the state, which have been more appropriate and reasonably sized for wherever they're located. But unfortunately, both the Weiss Farm project and the Forest Ridge are really misguided projects, and I don't think should get built. So that's why I've been strongly opposed to them. We just have to focus on other ways to create more affordable housing, because we do need affordable housing for people of all different income levels, and also for seniors who want to downsize, and young families who need different housing. So there are better ways, I think, to develop that housing than a project like Forest Ridge.
What are some of those ways you would help to make housing more affordable, because it's very low percentage right now?
It is a very low percentage in Winchester, you're right. And I think part of what we're trying to do, which is a good direction, is to encourage more housing to be built in downtown Winchester. That's where we now have new zoning rules, which are good, and I think new parking rules.
It's a much better location.
It's a better location, exactly. So the idea is really, it's called smart growth development, because you want development in places where there's also public transportation, ideally, because people don't have to have lots of cars and cause more congestion. So we just talked about, we're going to build the new Winchester Center commuter rail station. So wow, it has this great new train station, and that would be a great place for people to live. And not only could they get to work easily or to school using public transportation, but now they would be shopping, do some of their shopping in the town center, and go to restaurants, and so that's also good for the local businesses as well.
Okay, next question from Aaron.
Back to your re-election, why do you think you're a better candidate than your opposing one, Vince Dixon?
Well, I think that I have, a lot of experience now in what the needs are of Winchester and the other
Yes.
communities that I represent. I've, worked very hard to get to know many people in the community, and I've worked a lot with community organizations and local community leaders. And we've really had a lot of accomplishments, I think, in the time that I was a state representative and now a state senator. We talked about the new high school and the train station and flood mitigation and the Tri-Community Bikeway and Greenway, which we're going to be kicking off construction next spring, which will be a nice new addition to the community. And then what I've been able to do in the legislature as well, on education funding, on improving healthcare and public health, and other issues I've worked on. So I think I can be continue to be an effective representative for the residents of Winchester and the rest of the district. And so I hope that's why I would they would choose to re-elect me.
All right. Next, a question from Connor.
You've reached a major political accomplishment in becoming a state senator. Do you aspire to run for a different or even larger scale office?
Well, nothing that I have in mind at this point. I'm very grateful and honored to be the state senator. I felt the same way when I was a state representative. My job is very challenging. I work with so many different people and different groups, and I do feel like I can make a difference for the better and try to help people, improve the quality of their life and help our communities, the communities that I represent. So I really enjoy it. I feel very privileged to be able to serve as the state senator, and that's what I'm focused on trying to do as best I can.
How long do you think you'd continue to run if you had the chance?
I don't have a specific time frame in mind. If you'd asked me 10 years ago what I'd be doing now, I would never have predicted that I would be, a state senator. And I'd never run for. Well, I think the last thing I ran for before I ran for the state legislature was high school student government, high school student council. So that was a long time ago. I hadn't really run for anything since, and as I mentioned earlier, I was working in a business world, so not in politics. So I never really expected to do what I'm doing, but I think as long as I feel like I'm still doing, can do important work that makes a difference in people's lives, I will, hopefully continue to do it.
All right. A bit outside of your campaign now. What's your opinion on the controversial presidential election this year?
Well, I've endorsed Hillary Clinton for president. I endorsed her a long time ago, and I think she's highly qualified to be our president. She's had many years of experience in government and has proven herself to be, I think, a very effective leader. She certainly knows foreign policy inside out, and I think she will surround herself, if she's president, with a very strong team. I'm confident she'll have very strong people in her in the government, and I trust her to do a great job running our country, which is a big job. And so I'm certainly supporting her, and I'm very hopeful that she'll be elected on November 8th.
All right. On the topic of Hillary Clinton, there was a statement from John McCain earlier this week that the Republican Party would not accept a nomination to the Supreme Court from Hillary Clinton, which would be very problematic if that was true, because we currently already only have 8 justices, which has caused problems in the court, and also there are 2 justices that are growing older, and she could possibly have to make 2 or 3 appointments to the Supreme Court. So what do you say to that?
I think I didn't know he'd said that, and I generally respect Senator McCain a lot. So it's very disappointing to hear him say that. We have a great democracy in this country, and it's survived for 240 years, and based on a constitution that has become a model around the world.
Right.
And that constitution sets up separate branches of government as checks and balances, and having a full 9-person Supreme Court is a very important check and balance on the legislative branch and the executive branch. And it can't do its job properly if it doesn't have
Right,
9
of
justices. So
course.
I think right now, the Senate should be confirming President Obama's nominee,
Right.
who is by all accounts highly qualified, Judge
Merrick
Garland. And I think they should be taking that up, and they should not be waiting. I think that's very wrong. And if after the election, if Hillary Clinton's elected and she then nominates a justice, to replace Antonin Scalia, and if the Senate doesn't move forward, quickly to hold hearings and vote, I think that would be that would really be unfortunate, and I would be very disappointed if that were the case, and it would hurt our country.
All right, next a question from Aaron.
What are your opinions on Governor Baker's actions for the state?
Governor Baker is obviously a Republican,
Yes.
and I'm a Democrat, and so we don't agree on every issue, but we do agree on some, and we have worked very closely on a number of issues that are very important to the people of Massachusetts, and I would commend Governor Baker and his administration in general on working very well with the legislature, which is largely Democratic. And I think it really could, the way we've been working well together in Massachusetts could really be a model for other states, I think, and for Washington, as to how people who do come from different perspectives and don't always agree can still work together. And a good example is the work we've done together on fighting the opioid epidemic, which is very, very tragic. So too many people are getting addicted to prescription opioid pills and heroin and other substances, and we've had too many, particularly young people, who've overdosed even and died. And we've worked very closely with the legislature, Governor Baker, and others to make this a top priority and do everything we can to fight it. And that's something we've done hand in hand together. So I think we're working well together, and even when we disagree, and when we do disagree, we do it in a way that's not disagreeable.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, or we try at least.
Aaron has one last question.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would like to mention or discuss before we finish up?
Well, this has been a great pleasure to talk with all three of you, and I'm so impressed that you are interested in politics and in government and civics, and you really are an example, I think, to other students, both at McCall, where you are, as well as even at the high school. And you are the future. We do have big challenges in our state and our country. We haven't talked about environment and climate change. And economic inequality. These are major challenges, and so we're really counting on you as you grow up to help us figure out solutions. And the first step is to get involved and to learn, which is, I'm so impressed with what you've already been doing.
All right, great. We'd like to thank you so much for being here tonight, Jason Lewis.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
And that was America Tonight with State Senator of the 5th Middlesex District, Jason Lewis. Thank you and good night.